Twilight, it's so much more difficult, and it really takes someone with real talent to come up here and do what Justin just did, just by himself with the Very cool. So, another quick reminder, absolutely, again, no flash photography. That is some bad things. I want to stay away from that for right now. But that's the bad news. The good news is we are now to the potatoes of the evening. Get excited. A couple of books. One called Clips. The author is Stephenie Meyers. Could you please explain all the symbolism for the Twilight series covers?
Okay, this one I get a lot, so let's go through it. First we have Twilight, which is about the idea of choice. You have an offer in that cover. Are you going to bite into this apple? The apples have a lot of history, so there's pretty good chance that choices just going off of mythology. So that to me is a really interesting idea, because is Bella going to find out about this other world, or is she happy with the way she is? Of course, we know what she chose. Then we have New Moon, a very lovely ruffled tulip that actually has no meaning at all. Before I got to veto covers I didn't like. And so that one was just somebody at the company thought that was a really cool color scheme. I was like, okay, well, whatever. So then we had Eclipse, which I did get to come like today. And this is sort of a visible example of what happens when you try and break away from your old life and you don't do it with clean cuts. It gets messy. There are strings you can't break. Bella trying to break away from her life, it got pretty messy for a while there. So this was my visual representation of that. And then we have Breaking Dawn, which I did have a veto on. So this is exactly what I wanted, and I was really happy with the way it turned out. There are two reasons for this cover. In one sense, it is the cover for the entire series, because we have Bella starting out as the weakest player on the board, and then she progresses when she becomes the most powerful player. And she's really the one that affects the ending of the story. So this is about Bella's progression. Also, in specific for Breaking Dawn, I knew that the end was going to be a mental game. And what game represents a mental game more than chess? So I wanted to foreshadow the end. That is why the covers are the way they are.